Hello, everybody. Welcome to the first Saigon ASMR episode.
You're gonna freak people out, Nick.
Just kidding, not ASMR, not this time.
I don't even know what is that.
Well, ASMR is like those videos where like someone has a really good microphone and they start to like kind of like touch it with random objects, like I don't know, like sharp nails, or they'll like chop fruit next to it just so you can hear like every detail of that sound.
Ooh.
Yeah,
So, artificial clairaudience.
I think so, sure. Something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah. So wait, what time is it
artificial
over there? What time is it where you are?
six, six, 6 in the morning.
6 a.m. Over here it's 8 p.m.
Opposite ends of the spectrum on what we call time, right?
Right, like if I was like further along the globe, I would, I guess, be where you are. Like a full
You are where I am, and I'm where you are.
true, right? True. Same
That's
rock.
same crystal. Yeah, crystallized rock for sure.
So like there was two topics that we wanted to touch on today that was interesting. Number one was past life stories stored in our body. Can we start with
Yeah.
that one?
Yeah, I try to talk about all this stuff all the time.
Okay, so like
So
I want to ask you,
go
like, yeah,
ahead.
so like the past life stories, like the past lives, like, do you mean like our ancestors, or would it be like somebody random in the world?
No, I believe it's not believe from what I've experienced it's things that experiences and lifetimes that we have been through ourselves. And um and I don't know this because I did any kind of past life regression or studied anything on it. All of these incidences or occurrences or miracles or whatever you choose to label them as have happened inherently, you know,
Mm,
through. But anyway, what I learned, I mean, because let me back up a little bit.
mhm,
So each one of these walks, we'll call them our journeys or divine inspiration or or the red road we're walking, uh when spirit and humanity intercedes. Funny to break down that word, intercede. Our divine flame, our soul, it's called something different in every culture and religion, but they're all talking about the same thing,
mhm.
I believe. uh anyway, back to the past life stuff. What I learned this last time was horrible atrocities that I have done in past lives, and horrible atrocities that have been done to me in past lives by other humans, not by any spiritual being or
Mm,
anything in that. Seeing pretty horrific, traumatic events of literally taking, sorry, this is a little graphic, but it's the truth, taking people for the, just because of the beauty of their skin or the the sacrifice of being hooked up in your back by by hooks. um the way that the feminine has tried to control the males try to control the feminine, where it's located, different traumas, whether it's the lymph, the blood, the bone, whether it's in the past, the future. And like I said, this is not by any teachings. It was by the connection, the spirit. I don't know still what to call it because there's so many names. But I guess I knew it as a concept, but to walk it has been like I said, it was traumatizing, seeing the sexual abuse, the 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 deep magics, you know, that because of the hurt and the suffering, then people try to control and harness the deep power for ego purposes. And to experience all of those things, I guess what the lesson I've learned is, like I said, where it sits in my body, where it's coming from, whether it's the past, the present, the future, the things that we carry. And after that particular last walk, the liberation I feel, and the things that I didn't even know I was carrying all of these years, and that I know that we all carry. And again, today people are using all these practices, whether it be religion, yoga, all of it, when it's something between you and God. And I'm not putting anything like saying that it's bad to practice anything. I'm not, I don't know that information. I just know in my experience that it happens without any practice
Hmm.
because, I haven't personally developed that physical discipline. Maybe it will later. I'm not sure.
Like, can you share with us like how you're able to like get a glimpse into these past lives? Like, are you just like hanging out at home and it just comes to you, or are you going to like a specific setting?
Yeah. No, so far in my experience, I've been trying to put this together. Every time that this has happened, it's happened 4 years since I was four. It started at 44, and or when it really ramped up. And um, I'm sorry, what was the question again? I'm so sorry.
Oh no, like when you catch these glimpses of your past lives,
Oh,
like yeah, like
how did it,
does it
how
come
did
to
it
you
come?
just randomly? Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought originally, that
Hmm.
it was randomly, but now that I've been looking back on each one of the experiences, it started in 2019 during Lionsgate. I didn't even know, and still really don't have a huge understanding of what that is. And then the second time, the baptism in the Columbia River was the day before Easter, and Easter was on April 4th that year. I thought that was really strange. I'm not sure about any celestial events at that time, but I'm sure it was something, sure of it. And then the third time was a double lunar eclipse, November at 22, when I was in Georgia. And then this time was April 7th through April 26th. And it was a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse that only happens once every 100 years and won't
Hmm.
happen again for another 100 years. So I'm correlating, like I said, I'm studying and asking people and trying to put a timeline together on, to try to understand it myself, or understand it would actually be more appropriate because I already
Hmm.
understand, you know, but
Nice.
how to put it to these spiritual things that are happening to into the human world that people reject the idea, even though all the religions are based on it and it's been written about for eons.
Like this topic about like celestial like eclipses and stuff like that, like I don't know much about, but I do remember that in 2018 there was like a blood moon or something. And
And a planetary alignment.
like I didn't know anything about this stuff, but I do remember that on the day of the blood moon, for some reason, I had no anxiety. And that whole year I had had anxiety, but for that one day, I didn't have it and I couldn't explain why. Like, did you feel anything
You remember?
on that day?
I would have to look through my pictures to see where I was on that day. But 2018
I forget what month.
What I was about to say, what month, because yeah, something very significant happened in 18. I went down to Paradise, California, and my aunt was passing of cancer when we were going down to be with her. And this was in August. And to make a long story short, the first thing, my aunt was up and moving and going. She called me and she said, Carla, they want me to take this medication. And I said, Aunt Gloria, I said, you won't even take a half of Vicodin. I said, don't take that. I said, that's what they give for like hardcore drug addicts and things. I said, just wait till I get there. I'll be there in 3 days. I get there on the third day and they've taken her large bed out of her room and she's in a comatose state in a hospital bed. And the first thing I see is about 14 winged shadow things flying at the foot of her bed.
Oh,
So then, fast forward the story, there's many other things in the story, many things. But to end up, I knew that she was over drugged. And so I worked with hospice to get her medications right. And by the third day, she came back, was able to say her goodbyes, steadied her disabled son, my cousin, her on her deathbed, studying. It was quite a amazing thing to see. And then 3 days after, when her medications were stabilized, her sons came back in. And while I was out on the porch visiting, having a cigarette, her sons came in and double dosed her on the original amount of medicines that they had originally had her drugged on. And so I came in the house and I looked at the granddaughter and I said, well, say goodbye to your grandma. She'll be dead in 12 hours. And then after she passed that night, within 12 hours, I didn't know what to do. So I just got her Bible, and she was a Seventh-day Adventist. So I read her Bible to her and put on some native flute because of our lineage. And to comfort her through her last hours, or
mm,
what my human self could do. And when she passed, the sons wouldn't even come. And I thought it was very interesting, us all being from Oklahoma, that the cop that came was from Oklahoma, and that the lady across the street that brought us food was from Oklahoma. And but anyway, my point of getting to the story, after we had left, you call it what you want, but I knew it was a bad omen. We had got back to Twisp, and I had lived here for a lot of years and had never had a rattlesnake come to the house. And there was a rattlesnake, got a picture of it. It's huge. I'm talking half a doorway length, that was under my porch. The same day, a black widow crawled across my daughter's chest as she was
oof,
watching TV. And then my mom was staying with me because her mom or her sister had just passed. Obviously, we're being together. And she had a package down at her house here, the one I'm in now. And there's another rattlesnake. So two rattlesnakes and a black widow spider all in the same day. And so this is still within a week of us leaving Paradise, California. The whole place burned. It's done. Paradise, California burned to the ground.
jeez.
Mind you, that in 2014, my brother had died, and he had lived a really crooked path, but he was always a true believer. He was always talking about God, even though he had walked this crazy path his whole life. He was a thief and he was a liar and he was a drug addict, but he was a child of God and he loved God. I know that may sound contradictory, but it was. Anyway, in the same month of his death, I went outside. This was 2014. It was I went outside and I saw like a guttural cloud. I've still to this day never seen anything like it. And enough that I had my daughter and my boyfriend at the time come out, and I said, yeah, so you guys come check this out. And then right after that guttural cloud, there was like a perfect pig cloud. And I said, huh, when pigs fly, and I posted it on Facebook because I'm Captain Random like that. Anyway, within minutes after that, I saw the lightning that put down the largest wildfire in Washington state, the Carlton Complex fire in history up into that point. So, and then to fast forward back to the Paradise Fire, there was right after when I was scrolling through Facebook, and there was a picture of like a demon riding a horse out of the flames that somebody had posted. So you can say these are coincidences, you can say they're synchronicities, but I know different.
I wanted to ask
There's
you,
definitely. Yeah,
like,
go ahead.
like, like you have like a special ability. I don't know what would you call this ability? Like you can see stuff that most of us can't.
Others can't. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm just now coming into it. I've seen these things my whole life, but not in this magnitude. Um, and what would I call it? Well, I'm doing studies now, and I think you asked that the first time we spoke, and I think that we all have different gifts, talents, and abilities that are God given. And I think that the fear in people is so strong, and the judgment and all of the, negative connotations that go with it, that say, oh, that's not of God, or oh, that is
Mm,
of God, whichever way you want to go.
yeah,
All I know is it's different than anything that I've ever, I mean, but what to call it? I don't know. What would you call it? You've heard some of my
I'm not
experiences.
I'm not sure either. I think I'm still trying to figure out exactly like what is this lens that you can see from.
Well, I think just as you have your natural gifts, talents, and abilities of visionary, or because I've always had dreams my whole life, prophetic dreams. I have always seen ghosts and spirits and things when I was younger. And now I think that it goes back to, it's something kind of funny. I have always taught my kids, even before I had the wisdom of it. I had the knowledge. I said, I said back in tribal times, I read that when a woman comes to this age, that to, between adulthood and elderhood is when their gifts, spiritual gifts come in, and that it was the the warriors or the chiefs of the tribe would actually go to the elder women for counsel before any that's who made the plans and the decisions,
Mhm.
and the chiefs were the ones that carried out to the warriors and so on and so forth. But I always thought that was so strange, seeing, sorry, I had a call.
I know worries, no worries.
um Strange seeing in the earth plane that we live in, these women in Western society in the United States, everybody's calling them crazy at this age, or menopause, and drugging them, telling them they're
Mm,
whacked, and and the difference in the cultures. And so it's just interesting so I think that's part of it too. And I think it's also biblical. What I've just come across is like the fivefold, and that goes back to a dream I had years ago of like five religious figures standing at the end of my driveway, and I didn't even relate that till just now, because I'm doing research and studies on all of these different religions to try to figure it out for myself.
Carlos, like throughout your
I,
life, people
yeah.
have tried to tell you that maybe you're crazy
Oh yeah.
or whatever. Like, how did you
Psychological
manage to, yeah, like,
psychological bullshit, or it's that's crazy. They don't, you know what I mean? And that's why I've had to go outside of my own. I've been pushed out of every comfort zone in the last 3 years since this has started.
how did you
Everything I've known.
manage? How did you manage to like dismiss all those theories that you might be crazy or have schizophrenia or something? Like, how did you
Oh,
dismiss
I,
that?
at first I didn't. I thought myself. That's the first thing I did is get a psychology book and see if I was schizophrenic. That's I had to use my logical mind to make sure myself. And then I had seen many counselors to share my story. I went to religious officials, pastors, different, everywhere, everywhere.
Hmm.
I, um, to get other people's opinion on what I had experienced. And what I've found is they have book knowledge, but they don't have the experience.
Right. Like, how can they tell you
And so
what?
I'm asking, after this authority or God or whatever you want to call it, the light, the has already given me the message and it's for me. I've still searched for the past 4 years
Mm,
outside of myself for somebody else to validate it and tell me I'm okay.
mhm,
So
mhm.
it's just now since that past life, I'm just going to call it that because I don't know what, in the Bible, that's rites of baptism, which hit home. Uh, and the fourth rite is suffering. And that's what I experienced, all the suffering, all the, and it was, like I said, it wasn't just male or female. It was how people from a deep hurt has caused other people to suffer and to take away, you know.
Mm.
But what I've learned through that, or what I've gleaned in that, is that our soul is a divine flame. And apparently, we do have an agreement with Jesus, or whatever you choose to call it, that they can kill our bodies, but our the light is still going to ignite a spark in another body.
How would you define that word soul?
The divine flame, the breath that Creator, God, Great Spirit has ignited to make our flesh move.
Mm. Like the thing that animates us.
The breath of life. Yes. Yes.
Like I've seen like two different animals now like be alive and then they just happen to pass and then it just looks like they just ran out of battery. They're like animated and then it's like frozen. And then
Hmm.
I wonder like wait what happened? Like that thing was just walking and now it's inanimate. Like so where is the thing that animated it? Like I couldn't figure it out.
Well, I mean, you're going interdimensional with that because, it's like we want to harness things that can't be harnessed. I mean, that's where distortion comes in all, right? It's just like, yeah,
Like
so go ahead.
I had a little kitten and the little kitten it just happened to pass like while I was there with it.
Oh,
But when it was alive, it had a personality, like it right, like it there was things that it liked to do, like it moved in a certain way that was unique to that kitten that was different from my
right.
other kitten. Like there was something definitely unique about this little kitten. And then when it passed, it was just an inanimate object. And then I just wondered, so where did the personality go? Like the fur and the bones and all that is still there. Like where is the
Yeah.
personality?
Well, and that's where, I believe it's your soul, that divine flame is the closest that, soul or divine flame, the thing that sparks us. I was doing some research back into like the Rosicrucians, and I guess that's where like the Black Cross came from. When the soul comes into, when you're birthed on earth through your mother's womb, through the feminine, that that's like the crucifixion of Christ, because your soul flame is it's still there, but you're going through a physical, if that makes sense, like the physical death.
Mm.
And then I also learned that like those, they have like 7 red roses, and that's same as like in Oriental medicine and chakra spirit, everything, like all of these religions and all these different things is all the same. It's just the different symbolisms and different
Right.
names. But like those red roses are the chakras, and or the 7 different centers in the body that we have to uncog the machine of this mechanical mechanisms and
Mm.
machinations, the illusion of who we believe. You talk about personality, who we are told we are, who we believe we are, and
Uh,
then you know, and then whatever ignited that divine spark within us comes and helps us for our each unique specific journey, is what I'm finding. Why do I see this stuff and other people don't? I don't know. I don't know.
right.
I don't know. That's what I've been racking my brain over for the last, once I've accepted that I'm not crazy,
Mm.
and uh finding out, like I said, that this stuff has been written about in every religion and throughout eons and eons. It's interesting. I
Like you're
wonder what the
finding
purpose.
some like overlapping pattern, right?
Oh, yeah, undeniable.
And when you see it, you can't unsee it.
No, and then that's all I can talk about. It's completely right, right. That's why we're friends, Nick. You know, like it's like, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so these past like 2 weeks, a friend and I have been recording podcast episodes about a book called Waking Up by Sam Harris.
Oh,
He's not like a spiritual person. He's an atheist who's also a neuroscientist, but he's found some overlapping patterns between science and spirituality. But he makes it clear that it's that he's not talking about religion. He's actually like super anti-religion or whatever. But one of the chapters is about consciousness. So I feel I should ask you, what do you think is consciousness itself?
that's a hard question for me, because I have a real, like I said, like with practices and trying to to stay conscious, like even in this, not this, but in a lot of conversations, I don't have that skill. I haven't developed, uh I know when it's important like this, it's naturally here.
Hmm.
Consciousness, to when you say that to me, I believe like alchemy, and I know that may not sound like a relation, but what I've learned this last time is that, how man seeks gold, this precious metal. They've dug the veins out of the mother.
Hmm.
They've, you know, and what I learned is that the gold that they're speaking of is the light of God. It's the pathway, the illuminated pathway that God will show you,
Hmm.
whether that's moments before your death or it's but that's the gold, and again, like in all these different religions, people take it as something tangible, something you can hold on to, something, and it's not.
I want to ask you this, like, okay, so most people, they
Wait,
have,
wait, hold on. So
yeah.
consciousness to me is being with that golden light is what I was trying to answer your question.
Okay, okay, gotcha.
Being with
Like,
God, that's true consciousness, not what humans are trying to achieve.
mm, I want to ask you, like, so most people, they have thoughts. They say that they can be aware of their thoughts. Um, but like, okay, so we use our eyes to see, we use our ears to hear sounds. What do we use to be aware of our thoughts?
Well, I don't know what we use, but I guess that is our consciousness, our human consciousness, not the God consciousness, is to be still and listen to like what we've spoke about who's the voice hearing the voice. I
Yeah.
mean, it or interpreting, hey, I hear myself thinking, So
Yeah.
I don't know if that is your question.
It's like I hear my thoughts, but then some people will say like maybe even my like my idea of who Nick is might also be a thought itself. So then who is observing that thought?
Well, in my experience, there's a lot of different realms that are observing us.
Mm,
A lot. I looked into when this after the first thing the first time it had happened, I looked into I was directed to a Brian Scott website, his podcast or whatever. And one of the ones that I was directed to was Joseph Benner, Unseen Things or Unseen Forces. And so I listened with my judgmental ass. And I sat there and the first thing I was like, literally, I'm like, this is some Narnia BS. I don't know what the heck. The second thing, same thing, totally judging it. I was like, this is ridiculous. The
mm,
third thing described what I had seen, which made me rethink. It made me have to change my whole belief system in
mm.
a moment.
Yeah.
you know so I think that's part of it all too, is just shedding the sorry, I gotta fly, shedding the patterns. I know I'm still doing that,
Mm.
you know
Me too.
of who you thought you were, going back to that consciousness that humans are trying to attain, and 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 like, how do you stay in the flow? How do you stay in that God consciousness? Or is it meant for us to, go through these? I believe it's meant for us to go through these lessons to refine us and evolve us to whatever the shift, the shift that's happening right now,
Mm.
you know?
It feels like we're meant to go through all this stuff to realize that the thing that we were looking for was already there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so simple. That's one thing where I still struggle.
Me
you
too.
know, is that I just go down all of these, we'll call them rabbit holes,
Mm.
which, it's just hit and miss, hit and miss. Some things will resonate, some things won't. And what does that do? It's like what your guru says, it breeds confusion.
Mm.
That's a word I was breaking down the other day, and the way that I do is like toxins, talk in, toxins. It's we can talk ourselves into toxic beliefs,
Mm.
ways of being, self, you know, either ego or self-deprecation, you know, whichever, on the spectrum, wherever we sit, you know, it's just interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so I met you through a Ram Dass uh Facebook group, and for anyone listening that doesn't know about Ram Dass was as an American Harvard scientist who,
Jewish. I went to India.
yeah, and he was doing experiments with LSD like when it first started coming out, right? But then
Mhm.
his project got shut down, and I guess he lost his job, but he had already tripped multiple times on LSD, and I guess he had a feeling that he should go to India for whatever reason, and he went to India. And when he meets this guru, he says he has a similar feeling as having a mushroom trip.
Yeah, that's what I've learned too, is that the clearer I am, the closer to having a quote unquote trip I
Like,
am.
this
I
might be
don't,
a trip right now. But like I was wondering like what was something that you like read in that Ram Dass content that you felt it overlapped with your own spiritual experience?
his humanity, you know, at one point, so I've been celibate now for 5 years, and this is things that spirits naturally taken me on this path. Didn't make a choice to do it. It had me clean out houses. It had like a slideshow of my life, like what you hear about when people die. That's happened multiple times. Uh, anyway, what was the original question? Because I was getting to a point and I lost it.
It's okay.
Oh,
Like,
Ram Dass and
yeah, yeah.
his humanity. Uh, there was a story that he was telling about, you know, how he's the man and he has sexual needs and desires. And so he was getting hit on by multiple women and they just would idolize him. And, you know, your ego gets inflated and plus you have those lustful desires and you're going. So he had said that until he was able to look at everybody as the beloved, as God, seeing the God in other people. And that's where I related, because that's a natural gift that I've always had. It doesn't
Mm,
matter if they're a drug addict or a saint,
mm,
a murderer or a pedophile or bad things, or what we would, you know, classify somebody doing bad, horrible atrocities, to
mm.
someone as pure as Mother Teresa.